This brings us now to agenda item 9.5, teacher incentive allotment overview. Dr. McFarland.
So, Madam President and board members, as you heard mentioned before, one of our initiatives and one of our goals in the district is to learn from our best practices that we have at certain campuses and scale them to other campuses. And so, as you know, at ACE, the ACE Demonstration and Design District at Hargrave, a school at Hargrave, we learned a lot of things and we put a lot of things in place. And now the goal is to try to take what we've learned at J.A. Hargrave and scale it to other campuses in our district. We learned at Jackie Carden how to do the Early Childhood and Employment Development Center, and so that's why we're attempting to scale there. Well, the teacher incentive allotment is an opportunity for us to continue to scale strategic compensation and strategic staffing. And Dr. Kohler will be sharing this item with you, but I want you to know that this is just another step in really attempting to scale the good work that we have done in other places in the district. Dr. Kohler.
Thank you, Dr. McFarland, members of the board. I am very excited tonight to share this information about the teacher incentive allotment with you, and it aligns to goal 3 of our district plan for empowered staff, and you'll see that as we go through the presentation for sure. I just wanted to mention first that on the call with us this evening on Zoom, our Zoom meeting is Garrett Landry and Devron Armstrong. They are with Best in Class, and they are supporting our efforts to implement the teacher incentive allotment in Crowley ISD. And they have been working alongside us as part of our initiatives with ACE and also the additional school year initiative at David Walker. So they're with us this evening, and excited to have them working with us on this endeavor. So the teacher incentive allotment is part of the House Bill 3 package that was established as part of the last legislative session. And in that, it established an optional local teacher designation system. And the goals really are to ensure classroom teachers have a realistic path to earning competitive salaries. And the second is to attract, reward, and retain teachers, especially those working in schools with our most challenged populations. So just a couple of key points about the teacher incentive allotment. So districts will receive additional funding, and that can range anywhere from $3,000 to $32,000 per year for every designated teacher they employ. The way that works, districts will receive greater funding for designated teachers who work on rural or high needs campuses, back to one of their goals to really, that's a focus area. And then designations, once a teacher earns them, are placed on their certificate and they remain there for 5 years. So the teacher incentive allotment has 3 possible designations a teacher can earn. The first will honor recognized teachers. Teachers with this designation can earn between $3,000 and $9,000 a year, additional over their current salaries, for meeting the district developed qualifications. While there are no strict numbers, this designation will be achieved by approximately 30% of teachers across the state. In addition to the local criteria that teachers can meet to earn a recognized distinction or designation, if a teacher has national board certification, they automatically enter the teacher incentive allotment system at the recognized level. The next level is exemplary. These teachers can earn anywhere between an additional $6,000 to $18,000 per year, and they will represent approximately the top 20% of teachers in the state. And then the top level is the master teacher distinction. Approximately 5% of teachers statewide will achieve this level, and they can earn anywhere between $12,000 and $32,000 a year. These designations, as I said, once they are earned, are added to their teacher certificate, and they're honored in any district across the state for 5 years at the level that that teacher has earned. In terms of that range of amounts of money, those amounts are determined by a state formula. for every campus in the state. So every campus has an allotment for recognized, exemplary, and master already determined. In terms of, on the next slide, thank you. In terms of kind of what is the district's role in all of this and what are the state's roles in all of this, districts must apply to be a part of the system. Again, it was optional for districts to choose to do that. We will need to develop and implement a system based on teacher observation and student growth. We'll talk about those required components in just a minute. So that's our role. The state's role is to approve our system based on the validity and reliability of the data that we can provide for them. Next slide. So in developing the initiative, the state has mandated that each local designation system include 2 required components. The first is teacher observation. So in Crowley ISD, we use T-Test for teacher evaluation. It is already an approved system. It is so that is a pretty easy threshold for us in terms of, do we use an appropriate teacher observation system? The second required component is student performance. And while it's mandated that student performance is a component, the district will get to determine what will be used to document and demonstrate this performance. It could be STAR, it could be our MAP data, it could be other student growth goals. We have a lot of discretion as a district as we make determinations about this system. In addition, the TEA has given districts leeway to determine other measures that could be used for consideration. Things that could be like things like mentoring or leadership opportunities, professional development. So again, as we are working with our stakeholders and our design teams, those are all the kinds of conversations and decisions we are engaging in at this time. So I just thought I might provide a list for you of some of the districts in our area that have either already submitted an application or intend to do so. And I think it's important to note that as one of the goals of the teacher incentive allotment being recruitment and retention, it's going to be important for us to stay competitive, knowing that we've got districts around us who are already either, like I said, have submitted or will plan to submit. I think it's also interesting when you look at the list of charter campuses that 2 of those charter entities have already submitted applications for some of their campuses in the state. And we know that both IDEA and Great Hearts have campuses in Crowley ISD now. Currently we have a steering committee, has 32 members on it. They represent teachers, campus administrators, district level staff. They've met several times and have pledged their support for implementing the teacher incentive allotment and to move forward with submitting an application on behalf of Crowley ISD. So I just thought I'd share just a little bit about what that approval process looks like. So it's kind of 2 parts. The first part is that we submit an application, and it may have some narrative components. We may have to put some artifacts with us, but we basically are demonstrating to TEA in our application that our teacher observation system and our student performance measures that we are going to use are valid and reliable. So that's the first part of it. The second part of that is it comes from an external source. TEA is working cooperatively with Texas Tech University to ensure the validity of the data that we report. So next year, Crowley ISD will submit evidence of our teacher observation and our student performance data to Texas Tech to ensure that it is accurate and reliable. So the application that we are working on has 6 components, and each of those has multiple criteria that they're scored on a rubric, and they're scored as either limited, partial, or full readiness to implement the teacher incentive allotment. So in Right now, we have a design team that is divided up to each of those 6 components. Our goal, of course, is to score at full readiness when we submit our application. Each of those subcommittees is led by a district staff member and has members from the steering committee on it, as well as we'll branch out and add additional teachers and other stakeholders into those design teams as we continue to design our system. Next. So just to give you an idea of the timeline, you can tell from what I've shared already, it's pretty involved, an extensive process. Right now, we're in year 1, where we are developing our system, we're getting feedback and stakeholder engagement, and we will apply for the teacher incentive allotment. Next year, as I mentioned, is our data capture year. That is the year that we will submit our data to Texas Tech for that validity and reliability check. And then hopefully our teacher incentive allotment system will be approved, and we can begin to designate our teachers who meet the criteria and begin to compensate them. And then in subsequent years, we can add or tweak or modify as we need to. It's kind of an ongoing process. So just to give you kind of in closing a little bit about where we are with next steps, soon a district survey will go out to solicit feedback regarding the system design and the components that we want to include. And then another survey will go out to our teachers from Texas Tech. So surveys are definitely required as part of the application and approval process. Our design team meetings are happening weekly. We will continue, like I said, to branch those teams out and get additional feedback so that we can submit our application, which is due by April the 15th. So again, I thank you for the opportunity to share this overview. And we are very excited about implementing this in Crowley ISD, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
So Dr. Kohler, I have a ton of questions, and Lindsay's on the edge of her seat. Ms. Ben's on the edge of her seat. So she often asks my question.
Okay.
So I'm gonna let her take a shot first, and then whatever she leaves on the table, the rest of us will come pick it up.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm ready.
I apologize. I haven't had my video on. I have some unstable internet for some reason. So somebody text me if I'm freezing up or something. So I was really excited to see this on the agenda for tonight. I'm sure you know the commissioner released the TEA annual report today, and they had a whole section dedicated to the teacher incentive allotment. And on that, there are only 3,900 teachers in the state that have gotten this so far in 1920, because it's new. But looking at the average funding per teacher for that, it really just blew me away. I know there's a big range there that they give, but for the master teacher level, that highest level, the average funding this year was already $22,000. So that's a pretty big deal. There were only 440 teachers across the state that got that in these very beginning days of this. And I have 2 questions. One is it our intention to offer a pathway at each one of those levels, the recognized, exemplary, and master teacher? Because I know you can do a plan without all 3 of those levels, but will we be trying to do that?
Yes, we will be. Yes, our plan will seek to have teachers that fall in any of those 3 designation levels. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then are we also going, I don't know if it's a separate application, but will we be pursuing the mentor teacher allotment as well?
We actually applied for the mentor teacher, that initiative last year. We weren't awarded it last year, so we will try again this year. We kind of got feedback about kind of the things we need to tweak, but we did dip our toe in the water last year and didn't receive that.
Okay. So I was curious about that application, because I know, again, there's different things that you can do there. But I think you guys know how I feel about instructional coaching cycles, and that something to lift up, I think makes a really strong program there. So anyway, that's all. Thank you for pursuing this. It's going to be great for our teachers, but ultimately it's great for our students.
Yes, ma'am. I totally agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Benton. Are there any other questions or comments?
So, Madam President, I know we have Mr. Garrett Landry and also Mr. Devon Armstrong. If they would like to share anything, we'd like to hear from them if they like to before we close.
Thank you, Dr. McFarland, and members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here. It's we at Best in Class, we're a joint coalition between the Commit Partnership and Educate Texas. We've had the pleasure of supporting Crowley ISD for multiple years, and have worked with Dr. McFarland even in a previous district over many years. So we always love our interactions here. The team is absolutely phenomenal. I will just say we're supporting over 40 districts in the state with the teacher incentive allotment districts from cohort A all the way through cohort D, which is where Crowley is. And based on the plans and the design team meetings that have been led by Dr. Kohler and her team, feel very confident in the outcome and the product that's putting in place. Very thoughtful, very student and teacher centered. And so we have nothing but confidence in the district and the plans moving forward. Happy to answer any questions about how this applies to Crowley, how this is applied over the state, if that is of interest.
So definitely, I did have a question or two. I appreciate knowing that you're working with other cohorts, and I know in the first year, if I'm correct, I mean it was I think just under 30 districts that may have been awarded this opportunity, and I'm glad to hear that you feel like our application will be favorable. What is the competition like as we move forward in this process?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. That's a great question. First, I would say is in terms of competition, when you think about maybe previous initiatives, so if you look like the TAP program, Step and Ladder, there was a fixed pot of money. And so there was that competitive spirit, whereas if more people were successful, the amount of money was less for each individual or each district. This is not that way. So the teacher incentive allotment is formula funded. And so the state is committing to as many teachers who meet those thresholds, recognized, exemplary, and master, across the state, and that is in the formula to be budgeted for. And so in terms of competition for funding, there is no competition there. Where I will say the competition comes in is in terms of what your neighboring districts are doing, right? So Fort Worth ISD is in cohort D, so they are at the same place as you in terms of pursuing this initiative. However, the Leadership Academy Network, so the charter, the in-district charter with Texas Wesleyan was a cohort C. So they are already approved. So they're a year ahead. And then you have, Dallas ISD is cohort A, Garland, Richardson, Grand Prairie ISD are all cohort C. And so in terms of competition, you have to think about regionally, there are other districts within earshot of Crowley that could theoretically be offering these dollar amounts to those recognized teachers now. Whereas, we are still in the application phase, and then next year will be our data collection. But in terms of the state, you were in the very early phases. There's been 82 approved districts in cohorts A, B, and C combined, and there are about 280 districts where you are right now. So out of the 1,200 or so districts in the state, you're still in the early third or so, relatively speaking.
Okay. I appreciate that. So, and when you say other districts in North Texas, you're just saying as far as being attractive for teachers, right? That's what you mean by that. Not so much being selected. You're saying this is more like there are teachers already participating in these systems. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, ma'am. So the way that the state is looking at they look at them by cohort. So our cohort A districts, those were districts that had to have differentiated compensation programs even before House Bill 3 was even a thing, right? So that was 2018-19 was that data capture year. So really you're looking at Dallas ISD, Lubbock ISD, Longview, a very few number of districts, right? And then each year after that, cohort B was a 1920 capture year, cohort C is this year, is their data capture year. And then you are in cohort D, which next school year would be what's called the data capture year. That's kind of the anchor year if you think about when teachers would be eligible. And so there are districts in North Texas that are already able to award these dollar amounts because they have an approved system and they have validated data.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I understood you correctly. Are there any other questions from the board or any comments?
Yeah, I just, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is something that I've been interested in for a long time and brought up in the past, and I'm glad that it's something that everybody's seems to be on board with, though we've only heard from a few. But I guess in the past, the real concern that other people had and that kind of killed any conversation about it was the obviously in the past there weren't state funds for this, but was the method of evaluation, I guess, is something that's always been a hot topic, with teachers, and most of you would know more about that than I do. So I guess that's probably the sticky part here. And what, so we have, I guess, a committee looking at that right now to try and figure out the best way to do that.
Well, we already use the appraisal instrument that we use is already approved. So that's the first threshold.
Mhm.
And yes, the committee will be looking at how do we take the data from that and how do we weight that in the system.
Okay. All right.
And and really the good thing about this the system is that it requires quite a bit of teacher input, principal input, and we're at the very beginning stages. And so the good thing about it is that we'll file the application, and then we will have quite a bit of time to get it like we need it to be. And there will likely be a need for us to come back and just do a work session only on this, so that we can really talk about how much our observations going to weigh and how we're going to disperse the different allotments when they occur. There's a lot of things left to be done. We're at the very beginning stages of it, and it definitely has a lot of potential for us.
Yeah, I think it's great. Go on, Gary.
No, I was just, if I may, I
Not
think
Gary.
an important distinction is that this is a designation system. Your evaluation system is not being touched whatsoever. Your evaluation system, your board has approved that as in policy. This uses the evaluation system based on the fact that T-test is a component of the designation system, but it is a parallel process. So I just think that's an important distinction.
Thank you.
Ms. Hall, I have a question.
Go ahead. Ms. Evans.
And I think it was mentioned, and I may have missed it, but the teachers keep this designation for 5 years. Is that right? So what happens during those 5 years that keeps them qualified, I guess, is, for lack of a better way to describe it. So they get the designation, and year to year, do they need to, other than the student performance and those things that got them that designation in the first place, is there any kind of evaluation or rubric that keeps them with that designation for 5 years?
So teachers will still be required to have an annual observation. So even though they've earned this designation, they will still be required to have an annual observation as part of, that's just part of the way the system is developed. They will continue to do that.
Okay. And is it possible within those 5 years to move up to the next level? I think that was mentioned.
Yes.
Okay. I think it's great.
Are there any other questions or comments? Well, I echo the sentiments of my colleagues. We're really excited about it, and I look forward to the development and how things shake out. So good luck on the planning, and we look forward to hearing more updates about it as we move forward. Thank you, Dr. Kohler.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank
your
you,
support.
Mr. Landry and Mr. Armstrong as well.
Thank you all.